Hello class. This is the third section of the content component for 1,000 Wishes, where we've been studying conception, origami, and Japan. So reviewing our basic information for this unit, our content is conception, which are the ages of -9 to 0, where the baby is totally dependent upon the mother. It has not been born yet, and her influence is the primary influence. Our context is the who we've been talking about are the samurai, both because of their use of origami as an art form, and also for their use of the 1,000 cranes as an offering to ensure that they had a male child. What we're making is origami. The where we're studying is Japan. The time period is the Edo period, approximately 1600 to 1860. The why, the sacrifice for a wish, the offering at the temple, the 1,000 cranes, which was samurai speaking for the children and for the ladies to ensure fertility and a safe delivery. And the process is folded paper. So we're going to look at the relevance today of the crane to contemporary times, and we're going to start by looking at Sadako and the crane. So our essential questions are looking again at the original purpose of the crane, finding out what the history of Sadako is, and how that history changed the meaning of the crane. And here is a Edo drawing, ink drawing, that's been reproduced, and you can see the samurai and his sons, and they are feeding a crane. Cranes were also good luck in general and encouraged to hang around. His sons are not bald, their hair is shaved. That was their style. Okay, so the traditional purpose of the cranes are a symbol in Japanese culture and in a large part of the world of fertility, health, and abundance. Abundance means having plenty of everything. A senbazuru is a set of 1,000 cranes, and they're made as gifts to the gods, sacrifices, offerings, and left behind at temples. So for each senbazuru, 1,000 cranes you make, you get one wish or request. Samurais would fold these again in order to wish for a firstborn male child. Women would fold them in order to wish for safe delivery and a healthy baby, and also a firstborn male. And here we see a lady in her chambers, and she is holding a paper crane. And that thing that her maid is holding, that round log-looking thing, that's actually a pillow. And how they would use that is because the hair wouldn't change, this would go behind their neck and support their head so that their hair wouldn't get messed up. They also would hide their diaries in their pillows. So over time, the art of origami was almost lost. At the end of the Edo period, it kind of went down in flames. There was a royal kind of rebellion and infiltration of Western culture, and they sort of stopped doing a whole lot of the traditional art forms. Japan was modernizing, moving into industrialization, and then the wars began, and the traditions were almost lost. Sadako is credited with bringing back the tradition of senbazuru and also changing the modern meaning of the crane, because now when we fold cranes, it's not for fertility or, to ensure that you have a male child. And over on the right here, you see a diagram for the, it's an example in a paper division for how to fold cranes that are touching each other. that are linked by the wings, which is Zenbaruzu. So, World War II and the bombing of Hiroshima. This is critical to this story. World War II was fought from 1939 to 1945, and the war in the Pacific ended with the United States bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August of 1945. So they were bombed with nuclear bombs. The Enola Gay was the plane that took them over there, and these were the first and only times nuclear bombs have been used because they are so destructive. They are not only physically destructive and set things on fire and blow things up, but they leave the radioactive fallout materials that spread with the winds and also remain in the environment for a really long time and cause all sorts of bad things to happen. And what you're seeing over here is a mushroom cloud. That's what nuclear warheads do, and it has this characteristic shape of the tall column and then the puffed out top, like a mushroom. So, effects of radiation. Immediately, there was thermal radiation, which is extremely high temperatures. It sets things on fire, and it causes burns. And it causes both burns from fire, and it also causes radiation burns. Example you're familiar with of a radiation burn is a really bad sunburn. It's where your skin is burnt, but it's not fire burnt. So most of the people that died right away, they died from those burns and the infections and radiation poisoning during the first few weeks. The radiation poisoning, it causes death of body systems. Everything starts gradually shutting down. At first you think that nothing is really going to happen because you kind of think, oh, I didn't get too hurt. But then you start getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And your body just totally shuts down. Your hair falls out. Your skin starts, erupting in sores and burns. And it's like a microwave. It's kind of cooked you from the inside. Long-term effects of radiation exposure include developing cancers, progressive eye damage, infertility, and also mutations, and lasting damage to your organs and systems. The blast was so hot that if you look at the picture over on the right, that's a photo of a person. The person was scorched so much that they were scorched into the sidewalk, and so that you see this kind of shadow form. That's their ashes that were actually burnt into the cement. That's how hot it was. So the story of Sadako starts there in Hiroshima. She survived. She was 2 years old when the bombing happened. And she was not directly injured by the bomb, but she was exposed to radiation. And when she was older, she was around 11, I think. She was in school and she was a track star. She loved to run track. She loved to practice. She wanted to go to their competitions, but she started having a hard time running. She had terrible pains in her legs. She had a hard time keeping her breath going. And one day she collapsed because she hadn't told anybody about it. And they took her to the doctor and they discovered that she had developed leukemia, which is a common side effect from radiation. And she was very, very sick. But she had known about the ritual of Zenbaruzu. She learned from a friend at school who had been in a club where they had talked about it. And she decided that she was going to fold 1,000 cranes in order to ask for healing. She didn't have any paper at first because she was in the hospital, So she just used whatever paper was around. She'd use paper napkins and medicine labels and things like that. And then when her family found out what she was trying to do, they would bring her paper and her friends would bring her paper. And sources vary. Most sources say that she did not fold 1,000 herself. Some sources say there were 1,000, but her friends helped her. And she ended up dying in October of 1955. And you can see her there. The top picture is her when she was alive wearing a traditional kimono. And the bottom picture, she is in her casket. And those are little tiny paper cranes. She was buried with her paper cranes and her dolls. Dolls mean different things in Japan than they do here. And flowers and things like that. But because of her folding the paper cranes, her story became known. And a lady from Canada named Eleanor Kaur wrote this book, Sadako and 1,000 Paper Cranes, and published it. And it became very, very popular as a teaching tool for schools and as a historical novel. A historical novel is a novel that's based on actual facts, but some of it is dramatized. And this is what brought the whole idea of origami and paper cranes and the story to the West, so that's Europe and America, especially the United States. And it became very well known and began to be taught in school. And the art of origami had a renaissance and started to be practiced again worldwide. And the book is really super short. It's maybe 42 pages. Now, other things happened too. After her death, her classmates wrote letters to the government and asked for a memorial to be created for all of the children who died from the atomic bomb. She was by far not the only one. A lot of that whole generation had lasting effects and with cancers and other kind of health problems. Well, their letters, they listened to them and they created statues of Sadako at the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park in Hiroshima in Japan and the Seattle Peace Park. And people all over, they will fold senbeiruzu and they leave them at the memorials, both as kind of a way of honoring her, but also folded and then taken there in order to exchange for that wish. The crane itself, the origami crane, became the symbol for peace and disarming of nuclear weapons. And here are the two memorials. The one on the left is the Seattle Peace Park Memorial. And what you're looking at is a statue that's life-size of her in her school uniform. And she is holding a paper crane on her hand. And there is a set of senbeiruzu on her, hanging on her. When you Google this, a lot of times you can hardly see her because there's so many clusters that are hung on her. And then over on the right is the Hiroshima Memorial. And you saw, flip back one, that's the top part. I've used parts of this image before. There she is, she's standing and her arms are supporting a large paper crane. What she's standing on is representative of a nuclear warhead, and it has a crimson crane on it. The red in the culture is associated with healing and good luck. And then all around you can see they have constructed these kind of places for people to put the cranes, and all those colors in there that are hanging are clusters of cranes. And then you can see some art in the front. So your assignment, and you have 2 days to do this because I want you to really think. You just need your Chromebook. I want you to watch a resource video. It's Sadako and the Thousand Paper Cranes. One of the images for it is over here on the right. It's a modern animation, and it's not the story that I just told you. Instead, it imagines what happens and imagines her after she died, and is kind of about that. It's very short. It's 2 minutes, but it's excellent, excellent art and interpretation. So I want you to think about the story of Sadako and choose one of the following prompts and write a paragraph, which is at least 5 sentences. You can write in English or Spanish. If you want bonus, then answer both questions. Remember, bonus is both added into grades where you might need a little bit of a lift, and then it can also be added on to your progress report directly. So your first choice is to write a paragraph about the short film. What is happening? What does the crane and the paper, meaning the origami paper, symbolize? And at the end, you see a personal memorial sign for Sadako. Think about, who do you miss that isn't here anymore? And choice 2 is to write a paragraph that explains what you would fold 1,000 cranes for. What would you wish for? And why? And how would that change things? You have to be really careful with wishes. Okay, so that's what you need to do. You have 2 days. So I really want to see some very good work. Thank you.